Here's the raw reality of throwing 90 miles an hour from someone who trained themselves going from a 16-year-old throwing 78 to 16 months later, I was throwing 96 miles an hour. And we've even trained multiple guys get to their first 90 miles an hour at the pitcher lab. Now, there are 5 raw truths that no one really talks about in the pitching development space, especially if you're not someone who's genetically gifted and you actually have to train yourself to throw 90 miles an hour. Now, the first raw truth is that you're doing the wrong stuff. And when I say you're doing the wrong stuff, it basically comes down to 3 big mistakes that I see all pitchers fall into the trap of, which is, the first one is thinking that velocity is just gonna come as you age, right? If you're watching this, you've probably been told, hey man, as you age, you get older, you get bigger, stronger, you're gonna start to throw way harder, man, just wait. You don't have to chase velocity, you don't have to train for it, you're just gonna grow into that velocity. Now, I wish that was the case for everyone, but chances are, if you're not in the top 0.01% of genetics, that's just not gonna happen. Like throwing 90 plus miles an hour is not something that's a common thing. 90 miles an hour is getting a lot more common, right? But it's not because of, these guys are becoming more genetically gifted. It's because they are training better, right? They're doing the right stuff, okay? And so what we see at the pitch lab all the time is guys who come to us because they were misled. They were told that as they grow into their body, when they're 18, 19, 20, they're gonna start throwing 90 plus miles an hour. But what happens is, you might get bigger, you might get stronger, but you're actually not throwing harder, right? You're stuck in the low 80s, you're stuck in the mid 80s, seeing some of your buddies who, might have been the genetically gifted, throw 90 plus and be like, why am I not there, right? And you wasted all this time when you were 14, 15, 16, 17 years old, when you could be training, you wasted all of that time and now you have to play catch up. Because, to get to the Division 1 level, to get to the professional level, you can't be throwing 88, right? You can't be throwing 85. And so that is one of the biggest things that kills more careers, right? Complacency kills more careers than not having natural talent. People just get complacent, right? They just don't think they have to put in the work to actually get to 90 plus. They think they're just gonna grow into it. Now, the people who actually get there are the people who don't leave it up to chance. They're like, okay, maybe, hopefully I'm that genetically gifted specimen, but if I'm not, well, I'm gonna train as hard as I can. I'm gonna put in as much work as I can to guarantee or to give myself the best chance to get to 90 plus miles an hour, right? And that's kind of what I did. When I was 16, I was throwing 78 miles an hour. And I kind of looked at myself, I was like, if I was a genetically gifted specimen, I probably would be throwing at least, low 80s, mid 80s as a 16-year-old, right? Like that's pretty common these days, 16-year-olds throwing 80 plus, but I was throwing 78 on a good day. And so that kind of led me down this rabbit hole of, okay, I need to actually put in the work and do the right stuff to give myself the best chance to get to 90 plus miles an hour. And so this is a huge misconception. You're probably not going to grow into throwing 90 miles an hour, 95 miles an hour. You're going to have to put in that work, okay? And it can't just be any type of work. It has to be the right work. Now, this leads me really nicely into mistake number 2, which we see is that, now you're ready to put in the work. You understand that you need to do training. But the thing now that you're doing is going online and trying everything that you see online. Social media is a sea of information these days. You go on Instagram, you're scrolling through the reels, right? One person is like, oh, throw plyo balls. Another one's like, definitely don't throw plyo balls. One guy's like, oh, lifting is eyewash. The other guy goes, you have to be lifting, right? There's so much contradicting information everywhere. Okay, you might even be on YouTube, right? And you're looking at all of this stuff. But a lot of this stuff is very, very out of context. Right? And I'll admit, I post a lot of content on this stuff, right, to try to help, but a lot of it is out of context. Like, for example, if I upload top 10 of my favorite medicine ball exercises, those are my favorite medicine ball exercises that have helped me at one point in my career, right? I wouldn't do them all right now because it's not attacking what I need at this certain period of time. Okay, and so what I see is everyone trying all of these different things that have worked for different people, and, completely out of context, right? And they're creating their own programs and lifting programs and throwing programs. And honestly, it's a little bit dangerous because, for example, someone might be like, oh, I saw that pull downs is really going to help. I saw that plyo velos are really going to help. I saw that medicine will help. I saw that lifting heavy is going to help. They have no knowledge of programming, of, how to handle workload, recovery, and all of that. And they're jamming everything into their program. And now what happens? They're just overloading their body, right? And that's how injuries happen. Okay, and I'm not blaming you because that's what I did as well. You got to start somewhere. You got to start looking online somewhere, right? Because you want to put in the work. You know that you have to train and you want to do the right stuff. But what I'm saying is it's very dangerous to just pull different things from everywhere, right? With all this contradiction information. And one thing I will say is that there are very few sources that are actually trustable, okay? Social media, it's a very low barrier of entry, right? Anyone can claim that they were throwing 95 plus with no proof. Anyone can be like, hey, I'm a great pitching coach without even playing at a decently high level, right? Or coaching at a high level or a big time facility, right? It's a very low barrier of entry. They can just roll in, be like, yep, these are the top things to throw 90 plus miles an hour, and they just give you this generic cookie cutter program, okay? And so that's training mistake number 2, is when you're looking online, you're trying to figure it all out, but you don't know who to trust. You don't know what to actually do. So you just cram it all in and it becomes very, very confusing. You start to overthink. You start to doubt what you're doing, right? And it's just a bad spot to be in. And I get it because I've been there, right? And I'm going to get to how you can actually fix that in a second. And that's exactly what we do at the Pitch Lab. The third mistake is pretty much just going to facilities, in-person stuff just sporadically. Like, you're coach hopping. One time you go in, you're working with a coach who has this certain philosophy, right? And, I'm not saying that that philosophy might be bad. It's probably good and it will help you. But if you're only doing that philosophy for like 2 to 3 months and then you have to go back to college, high school where, the coach wants you to do a different thing, you're just reversing all of that effort and time and energy that you put into it, right? Because a lot of this stuff takes time. You can't expect to start throwing 90 plus miles an hour in 2 to 3 months over a summer velo program, right? You need the consistency of these things. And you might see a lot of progress in 2 to 3 months if you're putting in the right work every single day, okay? And you're getting feedback and you're iterating and you're improving every single day, not just a couple times a week, okay? And so those are the 3 big mistakes and the number 1 raw truth of throwing 90 plus miles an hour is that you're doing the wrong stuff. And to be honest with you, if you are doing the right stuff, it literally takes 1 hour a day. 1 hour of your day, every single day, and it becomes inevitable for you to start throwing harder and get to the 90 plus mile an hour mark. Okay, and I can say this with so much confidence because that's what I did myself. My partner, Albertus Barber, did that himself. We've trained guys who have actually done that. And so we've done it for ourselves. We've seen it with our athletes. And that's why I can say to you confidently that that's what it takes, okay? Now, the second raw truth of throwing 90 plus miles an hour is that you need to reprogram your mind. The big thing that I see a lot of kids do is they want to be realistic about their pitching velocity, right? It might be that they throw 82 right now. And I'm like, okay, so what's your goal in 12 months? They might be like, in 12 months, I want to throw 85. And I'm like, why not 90? And it's like, that just seems unrealistic. 90s are really, really high. Or it might be like, I'm talking to a guy who's throwing 88. I'm like, what's your goal? He's like, in 12 months, I want to throw like 90. I'm like, why not 95 plus? Okay. And so there's this misconception or there's these limiting beliefs that you guys are holding on to that throwing 90 plus is like the hardest thing in this world. And like you need to have some type of perfect genetics or you need to be, outlier in some way to be able to do it. Now, this is a limiting belief that is actually holding you back. Okay. When your mind believes something that is very, very difficult to do, if it feels like 90 plus miles an hour is just this thing that is like the most hard thing ever, then that's what's going to happen in your reality, right? And this is what I used to believe when I was in Sydney, Australia, when, I was throwing 78, which was still not bad for a country that baseball isn't too big in, right? And if you're throwing 83, 84, 85 miles an hour, that was considered gas in Sydney, Australia. And so I would think about 90 miles an hour like, oh my gosh, that's something that's, I don't even know if I could do that. That's like a magical number. That's like the most impressive thing ever, okay? And so what this actually creates is that your benchmark becomes 83, 84 miles an hour, okay? And you do the work to get to 83, 84 miles an hour, but subconsciously, you're not gonna put in as much work to get to 90 plus miles an hour because you don't believe it. You don't believe in yourself to throw 90 plus miles an hour. Now the problem becomes, if you don't believe it yourself and you don't believe in yourself to throw 90 plus miles an hour, it doesn't matter how much work you put in, right? It's just not gonna happen if you don't believe that. You gotta tell yourself that, okay, this is something that I can do, okay? And reprogram your mind. And there's a couple ways you can do this, okay? The number one thing that I did to actually reprogram my mind was surround myself with people who were throwing 90 plus miles an hour regularly. Okay, when I was 16, I moved to Seattle, Washington, and I was in a facility where everyone else was throwing 90 plus miles an hour. And I was the youngest there, I was the slowest thrower there. But as I was in this environment, something strange happened to where, 90 plus miles, if someone was throwing 90, it was like, that's cool. It wasn't something that was special anymore. It was something that was, a regular thing that I would see on a daily basis. So slowly, my mind started to perceive it as like, yeah, bro, like, I need to be 90, but like, I need to be more 95. Because to be one of the best in that facility, I had to be throwing 95, 96 miles an hour. 90 miles an hour just wasn't even cutting it. Okay, so the benchmark just leaped from 83, 84 miles an hour to like 95, 96 miles an hour. Okay, I wasn't even thinking about 90. There wasn't even like a 90 mark that I was shooting for. Okay, it was more 95, 96. And so what happened? I shot past that 90 mile an hour mark. Right? Because I wasn't even thinking about it. When you're thinking about this 90 mile an hour mark, and you're just like, oh my gosh, this is something that, when you just think about this 90 mile an hour mark constantly, right? It can actually become like a ceiling for you. There's this great book called Psycho-Cybernetics, and the author actually worked with a guy at the Florida baseball ranch. And what they found was so many guys were getting stuck at 88, 89 miles an hour because 90 miles an hour was this like magical number that they were, because 90 miles an hour was something that they felt was such a hard thing for them to do that, they were actually self-sabotaging themselves. And it's a really weird concept, okay? But these limiting beliefs can actually hold you back, all right? And so you have to reprogram your mind to be able, and you got to start to think about, okay, 90 miles an hour is no longer special. 95 is the new 90, 95 is what I'm going at. When you start getting close to there, what do you feel like you should do? You should be like, dude, you know what? I see so many guys throwing 95, 100 should be my goal. All right, and so this is just reprogramming your mind, okay? And if you can't surround yourself with anyone and put yourself in an environment where there's people who are throwing 90 plus, just go on YouTube. This is also something that I did, was I would go out and search the people who were going to where I wanted to go. Okay, and where I wanted to go was Division I powerhouse, places, get a scholarship from one of those places, or go professional baseball, right? And so I'd search up, guys who are actually getting the big time scholarships and getting drafted. And what did I find? I found the perfect game, All-American game. Now, all of these guys are throwing 93 plus, and I would just watch it and watch it. And at that point, I was like, dang, maybe 83, 84 is slow. Maybe my benchmark needs to be more 95, okay? And slowly I started to strip away from these limited beliefs that were holding me back. And now I was ready to go all in, and I believed in myself because I now knew that 90 miles an hour is no longer special. So if it's not special, then I can do it. If this guy can do it, then I can do it. And for you watching, if I can do it, you can do it. Okay, and at the Pitcher Lab and with my co-founder, we totally believe that everyone has the chance to throw 90 miles an hour if they're doing the right stuff. Okay, so the raw truth number 2 is that you have limiting beliefs and you have to reprogram your mind in order to get to the next level. Now, the last thing that I will add into number 2 is that reading books and reading these great books have really, really helped me reprogram my mind and have a mindset that helped me get to 90 miles an hour and beyond. Okay, and I'm gonna give you 5 today. So the first one is Psycho-Cybernetics. Second one is Atomic Habits. Third one is Can't Hurt Me. Fourth one is Mindset. And the fifth is The Dip. Okay, and there are a bunch of books that, I've read that have really helped me, but those are the 5 that come to my mind right now that could really help you and create a mindset, right? I know this is more on the boring side. It's not the, throw hard and lift and all of this stuff. But this might be the most important thing that you do, okay? And reading some of these books is a very, very good start. Start to immerse yourself in an environment where everyone else is better than you. And make that the norm, make that the benchmark instead of limiting yourself. Raw truth number 3 is it isn't going to be linear. So the first thing with velocity development is that if I use myself as an example, with velocity development, everyone thinks it's going to be a straight line like this. And everyone thinks, I was at 78 and then, 16 months later, I was throwing 96 miles an hour. Everyone thinks that it's going to go like this, where this is like an 18 mile an hour difference. And, if it took you 16 months, then, it was probably just 1 mile an hour or a little bit more than that every single month. And you just went like this, right? But the raw truth is that it's not going to be like that. And most of the time it was like this. Work, and you're actually going down because you're accumulating workload, your body's getting fatigued, which is not a bad thing because you're actually doing the work, right? And then suddenly something clicks and you get a big jump. It might be like a 3 mile an hour jump. And then it all repeats again. You PR, right? And the body has moved the quickest it has ever moved. And so it's kind of like, oh my gosh. Like, it kind of puts your body into a little bit of shock, right? And so you can't expect to just continue to improve like this because your body needs time to adapt, right? And that's why at the Pitcher Lab, every single time we see someone PR, we're going to deload them to give their body a little bit of a rest, right? Because if you PR and you expose your body to something it's never exposed to, and then you keep trying to push it, that's when things can get very dangerous, okay? And so this is more like how it's going to happen is, okay, you work, you PR, right? Now you're going to give your body a little bit of rest, and now you're back to working. And then you work, and it'll probably go down, right? It'll probably go down. Like, we run things in 4 to 5 week cycles. And by the 4th week, if you are throwing at a high intensity, chances are you're throwing like 2-3 miles an hour slower than week 1. Just because like week 1 is after you've rested, your body is fresh and you're ready to go, right? But then you work as hard as you can for week 1, work as hard as you can in week 2, work as hard as you can in week 3. Now your body is accumulating so much workload, and it's not like a bad thing. It's just kind of how it happens, right? Your body does need like a deload to actually reset, get fresh, and then be at its peak performance, right? And so like in week 5, you're going to be pretty fried. And so that's why you get something like a deload. And so, you work, you're probably going down, you might deload, and then week 1, you might PR again. You're like, oh my gosh, I feel amazing. And then that's kind of how it happens. Work, bang. Work. And this can last a long time, right? There's no telling how long this work period is going to last, okay? And that's what makes it hard, right? This is where most people stop, like right here. They see no results. They're doing a training program. They see 0 results and they're like, oh, this doesn't work. Let's just try a new program, okay? And then what happens when they try a new program? Well, they reset back here. All of this work went to waste because now you're doing a different philosophy, different training program. And, you're going to have to go through this anyway. There's no program in the whole world, and I would know because me and my co-founder have done pretty much every program there is out there and worked with some of the smartest minds in the MLB. There's no program that's going to get you from, make it linear like this because that's just not how the human body works, okay? And so it's mostly going to be like this. And with the kind of books that I talked to you about, they're going to really help you get out of these work phases where, it's pretty depressing. I'm not going to lie. You're putting in as much work as you can, right? You're doing the right stuff, but it's just like you're building, you're stacking without seeing any results. That's what makes it hard, okay? But the kind of books that I told you about, for this, it might be The Dip, grit, right? There's a really good book called Grit. There's a really good book that I mentioned called Atomic Habits, right? These are the mindset shifts that are going to keep you going even when it's difficult, right? And you know what happens when you keep going, when you keep stacking good days? This is going to happen. Bang. It happens so slowly until it happens all at once. Okay? And this is how it happened, right? For me, it was pretty rapid for me to get to 90 miles an hour. 88 to 90, it was very rapid because it's pretty straightforward. Okay? I'm not going to say it's easy, but it's straightforward. And there's a process, especially for us, that we've kind of engineered with our guys and for ourselves. We experimented on ourselves and now we implement it in with our guys. And this is pretty straightforward. And if this is something where you want to see like the step-by-step process of how you actually do this, I created a video, top link in the description. It's a free guide to throw 95 miles an hour, and so you can go check that out. Okay, but once I hit this, it was a grind to get up to 96. Okay, I was in the grind phase. I was grinding. But if you're able to stick through the tough times and know that it isn't just going to be linear, right? Then you're going to be so far ahead of everyone else, because this is where everyone stops, okay? Again, if you want to see, there's a bunch of good illustrations that, show this stuff, which is like, there's one that I love, which is, work, and you're seeing no results. And then it's like that, right? And all of these results. And then here it says, this is pointless. And this is where everyone stops. Or it might be that picture where someone is digging and then, it shows that there's gold, like literally like a couple feet under where they were digging, but they're like, there's nothing here, I'm going to stop. And so getting through that, is going to give you the best chance to get to 90 plus miles an hour. But honestly, it's one of the biggest things that you need to develop in order to be, successful in life. Right? And I'm not, gonna be here and be like, I'm successful in life or whatever. No, I'm a student of the people who are the most successful people in the world. And every single one of those people are able to clear this no problem. They understand that that's a process. You ever hear that cliche saying of trust the process? I hate that. I used to hate that. It's like, what process? What am I trusting? It makes no sense. I hate when you say that to me. And now I realize, it's like, okay, the process is this. It's the grind. It's the suck. It's the work that you're going to be putting in. And when you trust it and you're doing the right stuff, okay, this can't just be if you're doing, random stuff that you see online. This will be more if, you're working with a guy who actually knows what they're talking about. You have a proven program and system that's going to work, but it's just not, showing immediately. That's what this is, okay? Because it's just inevitable for you to get results if you're working with the right people and doing the right stuff, okay? And so raw truth number 3 is that it just isn't going to be linear, and you got to get through it. You got to get through the suck, the grind. But if you do, then you'll be ahead of one else. All right, raw truth number 4 is to stack wins. Okay, like I kind of talked about here, it's not going to be linear. And especially with pitching velocity, it's definitely not going to be linear. All right, but the one thing that you do need to do, and something you can do during that grind, is to stack. And so what I mean by this is that when you're training, right, you're lifting, you're throwing, you're doing mobility stuff, you're doing all of this stuff, you can stack small wins every single day. Okay, and this is what's going to keep you going every single day. So I'll give you an example. When I was training, it might have been like the back squat. I was able to do like 350 for 5, and that was a PR. Even though my pitching velocity isn't going up, I was able to PR on my back squat. So that's a win. Okay, it might be like, I was able to get a little bit further with my mobility, get a little bit more range in my mobility. That's another win that you can stack. Okay, or it might just be like when you're throwing, it just felt a little bit more effortless. It just felt a little bit more smooth. That's another win. Right? I know our goal is to throw 90 plus miles an hour, and we're trying to track pitching velocity, but the thing is, you need to stack even the smallest wins. You need to be stacking them, okay? Because this is when people get discouraged, is when they keep looking at the radar gun, they see it, plateau or even go down, and they're like, man, none of this stuff is working. Like, I give up. Compared to someone who's, okay, the velocity is going down a little bit, but hey, I'm happy because, I got a little bit more range on my back bridge today. I got a little bit more weight on the bar when I was doing, squats today. I was able to move the bar quicker than I've ever before on my speed bench press. Okay, all these things, you need to start stacking them, okay? Because that is what's gonna keep you going, and that is what shows improvement, okay? And as you stack a lot of these small wins and a lot of these improvements, that's when you get that spike in velo, okay? Now, there is no unlock to pitching velocity, but if there was, it would just be stacking quality days. Just coming in and doing the right stuff at the right intent for a long period of time. Because if you do that, then it just becomes inevitable for you to gain velocity and eventually throw 90 plus miles an hour. Okay, the people who aren't able to do it is, one, they're not doing the right stuff, they're not getting coached by the right people, or they just stop too early. Okay, and I've yet to see someone who's actually doing these 3 things, right, and don't gain velocity and not get to where they want to go. Okay, and again, we believe that everyone can throw 90 plus miles an hour. Now, upper 90s, 95, 96, 97, 98, that's a different story. But we're talking about 90 miles an hour here. Okay, and if you're doing the right stuff, you're getting coached by the right people for a long enough period of time, we believe that you can get there. Okay, and you have to believe that as well. We can't believe it for you. You have to believe it for yourself, because that's where it all starts. With raw truth number 2. You need to reprogram your mind to actually believe that you can get there so that you don't self-sabotage yourself, and actually go all in on getting to that goal and believe it before we give you the programs and the coaching so that you can stack wins, right? And a proven, systematic way to get to 90 miles an hour and beyond, okay? Now, going back to what I said about it only takes 1 hour a day, okay? Imagine if you put in the right work, you stack wins every single day for an hour a day. That's over 300 plus hours in a year, okay? But it's only 1 hour a day. And so if you're not able to put in that for a long period of time, then I don't think you're very serious about, throwing 90 plus miles an hour. But if you're a guy who believes in themselves, it's like, yeah, I can put in 1 hour a day. I want to do more. Then those are the exact guys that get really, really great results, especially at the Pitch Lab. Most people overestimate what they can do in a couple months, like 1, 2, 3 months, but they underestimate what they can do with a full year of focused training. Okay, and so many people are like, oh, I'm gonna try to gain 5 to 10 miles an hour in 2, 3 months, but they're never like, oh, if I can put in the work, an hour a day for a whole year, then I can probably, get to where I want to go. So raw truth number 4 is that you have to stack wins and be consistent, right? You got to find a way to be consistent and not give up and keep putting in the right work, because that's how you get that big spike at the end of all the work you put in. Raw truth number 5 is that you have to be doing the right stuff. Like I talked about in raw truth number 1, all of this stuff is helpful, but you're not going to be able to get to 90 plus miles an hour if you're doing the wrong stuff, right? No matter how much work you're putting in, no matter how consistent you are, if you're just doing the wrong stuff, then you're not going to be able to get to your goals and throw 90 plus miles an hour, okay? Now for this, there are underlying principles that you just have to work on to increase pitching velocity. And I like to break it into 2 parts. Okay, the first part is that you need to develop the frame capable of producing enough force to throw 90 plus miles an hour, right? And so what is this? Well, this is weight room stuff. This is the throwing program. This is the medicine ball stuff, pliable stuff. It's the sprinting work. It's all of everything that you need for your genetics to develop the engine to throw hard. Okay, without that, even if you have perfect mechanics, you're not going to throw hard. Okay, and so you have to develop the frame, because that's the potential. You need the potential to be able to throw hard, okay? And I like to visualize it like this. So this might be your frame, okay? And so, to throw 90 miles an hour, if you need to have this much force production to throw 90 miles an hour, then no matter how good mechanics you might have, you're not gonna throw that because you just don't have the frame and the body to be able to do it, okay? And so you need to develop this frame to be at least here, or ideally way up here, to actually throw 90 miles an hour. Because step number 2 is energy transfer and your pitching mechanics, right? And so this is about how much of this energy and the force production that you can actually transfer up the chain into the arm, right? And so for this to work out, you need to be able to transfer enough energy to throw 90 miles an hour, okay? And this is pitching mechanics. And so why this won't work, right? If you only have the potential to throw 90 miles an hour and you only have that kind of force production, then chances are you're not going to be able to produce all of that. Like, it's damn near impossible. Even the most elite athletes can only do 80% of their force production potential. Okay, and so you do need to build the frame as you work on your pitching mechanics and your pitching delivery to be able to actually express that. Okay, but the good thing with the frame is that once you're here, it's kind of considered like you have a pretty good base, right? You have a pretty good force production to be able to throw 90 plus miles an hour and beyond. So that doesn't have to be your main focus. Okay, your main focus is just going to be how can I actually tap into that on the pitching mound. Okay, and so this is a 2-step process, and you want to do these at the same time. You want to constantly increase this, and you want to constantly increase this. Okay, because a lot of this stuff, is physical. It's actually training your body and getting it to a place where it can produce force. Right? This is strength, rate of force development, developing impulse, becoming elastic with your throwing, actually training your central nervous system to throw hard. All of these different things is the first one, okay? And then the mechanics is more of a skill. You need to learn it from someone who actually knows what they're talking about, who has a track record of doing it themselves and with other athletes, right? Because they're going to be able to help you develop the right pitching mechanics for you, that works for you, okay? And so that is, that's the formula for, and so that is what I'm talking about when you're doing the right stuff. And again, there's so much more detail that goes into it. Like, you could be trying to work on your mechanics and doing the wrong stuff because you don't really know your body and how well it moves, right? Or you're trying to build the frame, but you're doing bodybuilding style workouts. Like, it's just not going to help you on the mount, right? And so again, if this is something you need help with, then there's a video down below in the description. You can just go out and check it out. And I explain, what you actually should be doing, okay? But this is a 2-step process, and you actually have to be doing the right stuff. And when you're doing the right stuff, it becomes inevitable for you to gain pitching velocity. And so those are the 5 raw truths about gaining pitching velocity and getting to 90 plus miles an hour. And as always, we're here to help. And so if you want me to help you, lend a hand and create your whole program and coach you through this, then you can book a call below. And we can talk about coming up with a complete roadmap for you. But again, hopefully this helped. I'm rooting for you, and I'll see you next time.